Are you a new DJ and feeling overwhelmed on what equipment you should get? I'm going to show you my very first setup that I used for all of my first gigs. And I'm going to show you in this backyard because a lot of the weddings I started with were backyard weddings. Let's go. Now here's the complete setup right over here. Okay, I'm going to go over all the equipment, how to connect it all, and why I chose this equipment. Now, first of all, underneath this tablecloth here, I do have a table, and this is a DJ table I got from Amazon. I'll put the link in the description. You could, however, just use a basic lifetime table, a plastic one. It would work just fine. Right here, you've got my controller. This is probably the most standard yet beneficial controller on the market right now. One that's not too expensive, but has a lot of features. It's the Pioneer DDJ FLX 4. Now, a lot of common questions that I get from new DJs is, how do I connect this controller to the speakers, right? DJs, they know that the speakers have these XLR inputs right here, but when they look at the Pioneer DDJ FLX 4, it does not have a XLR input at all. It only has RCA. So one of the first ways I'm going to show you how to do that is by using an external mixer. I strongly recommend using an external mixer. You don't have to. You would be able to go your way and do a wedding without an external mixer. However, if you're planning on doing this more and more and you want to do bigger weddings that are higher budget, where they're doing speeches and ceremonies and you need to understand microphone work, you definitely need a mixer. So let me show you how to connect it through the mixer first, and then I'll show you how to do it without it. You can do it in a couple of different ways. I chose to get this cable right here, which is an RCA to XLR. So pretty much this cable, it just connects these two RCA parts right in there. You go through and you connect it right into your mixer. So right here in the mixer, this is our channel for the DJ controller. If I want to turn up this channel, then I'll turn it up right here. The goal in each wedding, though, if you're using a mixer, is usually to just turn it up once, and then usually to control the volume from here. Next thing you're going to do is make sure you have two XLR cables. You're going to put them in the mixer outputs, and then you're going to connect that to the speaker input. Now, a lot of people don't like adding this extra variable, but once again, I think it's super smart if you're ever having to deal with microphones, because if you have a microphone, you can just plug it in right there. Also, another suggestion, the cords I've used are only 10-foot XLR cables for our purposes for filming this here today, but in an actual event, I would only use a 25 cord. You'll notice that it's kind of dangling here, which is really dangerous. I do have a couple things that I've put on here, these little clips. I'll also put them in the description. They will save you from that hassle and make it a little bit safer. However, this is just probably too short of a cord, so you'll notice there's a little bit dangling there. That's never a good thing. Even if you have a facade covering this whole thing and nobody's going to see the cord, it's still a hazard. Now, the DDJ FLX 4 is only powered by your computer. It's actually not powered into the ground. So there's a little cord right here that connects from the computer to the FLX 4. And I'm going to show you guys the software I use. It's Rekordbox, and it is free if you get the Pioneer DDJ FLX 4. A lot of people will bag on Rekordbox and say that Serato or DJ Pro is better. It's really up to you. I like Rekordbox because it's free, and I've been using it for a while now, and now I have all my information saved, so I don't see myself switching anytime soon. I love Rekordbox. So make sure before you do any of this, you download Rekordbox. It'll be able to help you learn that right away. There's a lot of YouTube videos on the internet that can teach you how to use Rekordbox as well. This computer I have here is a MacBook Air. I believe it's a 2020, and I bought it used for $400, and I have not had a single problem with it. I absolutely love this computer. Right here, you'll see I've got an extension cord that's running all the way to the house. It is very messy right here. You should never leave a mess like this in an actual gig. It is a hazard. People can trip, so you want to tape it down with gaffer tape. This cord actually is connected to my power strip. You're going to need a power strip if you do this, and I really recommend this one. It's the Furman. Furman power strips are made specifically for audio equipment. They are amazing, and they are known to even helping your audio quality improve. So I am a big fan of Furman. You could also get a power strip from Home Depot. I would get one that's metal and beefy. If you do, make sure that it's strong. But if not, I would just go with the Furman. It's a little more expensive, but I'd really, really recommend Furman. You will notice that I also put a tablecloth here. This tablecloth is kind of wrinkly, doesn't look the best. When you're doing a gig, especially a wedding, presentation is everything. I would really just go forward and get a Facade if you can. Facade, yes, that's the word that looks like Facade, that you're like, what is this word, right? So that's what a Facade is. Look it up. It's spelled F-A-C-A-D-E if you don't know. I was confused by that word. Anyways, go with a Facade, but if you can't, a tablecloth is great. And the reason we use this is just because it covers up a bunch of these cables. So obviously this is where I mentioned you'll want to get longer cables so that it's covered up. You can tape them to the ground, right? So that nobody will see them. But in a normal situation, this would actually be pretty great. All right, now that everything's connected, we're gonna play an actual song. So we're gonna practice with turn down for what. So first things first, got my volume up here, that's all the way up. Everything looks good. Everything's at 12 o'clock. And then my mixer, I'm gonna turn it down kind of low over here. This is the volume that you're using for this channel. In this case, this channel is our DJ controller. Oftentimes, if you have a microphone, that will be this channel right here. Notice that that channel is all the way down. This right here is kind of like our master volume. So if you have this up like this, you turn this one up, the volume's still gonna turn up, right? However, it will not turn up for this one because this one is currently muted, right? So I usually just keep this one at about 12 o'clock as well. Let's see how it goes. All right, so it sounds amazing. I didn't want to turn it up too high because I'm in this lovely residential neighborhood and I don't want my neighbors to be too mad at me. It sounds great because I'm using these amazing speakers right here. One thing that's obviously going to be very important is the speakers you choose. I went with the Electrovoice ZLX 15 BTs. If I'm being honest, I feel like the BT is not super important to me. It makes the speaker cost a lot more, but as a DJ, you should make sure everything is actually gone through a physical wire. It's going to make the sound quality so much better and so much more reliable. If you're looking for other speakers, you could go with Alto, you could go with Mackie. They're not as high quality as EV, but they'll do the job. I also wouldn't recommend getting 15s, like 15 inches on your first go, because they're pretty big. And if you plan on upgrading one day, you're probably going to take these speakers and use them as zoning speakers. I really wish I had smaller speakers now. So these, I really only use these now if I do things like school dances, but they actually aren't used too much. So I would start off by getting either a 12-inch or even a 10-inch for your first couple of weddings if this is something that you're getting into. Now, I said I would show you how you could set this up without the mixer. And once again, I really do strongly recommend using a mixer, but you don't absolutely have to. One way you could do this, even with two speakers, is by making sure you've got your RCA to XLR. So I've got my RCA to XLR, and it is going all the way to another XLR cable right here, which is actually going to plug straight into my speaker, okay? So this will play music from this speaker. One other thing that you can do with speakers is called daisy chaining, which means you're gonna go to the output section right here and put in a cable, and this cable is gonna run all the way to another speaker, and so it's gonna plug right in here. When you daisy chain speakers, the speaker that's daisy chained is going to mimic the other speaker perfectly. Daisy chaining is another great way of going about it. However, I just really recommend using the mixer. If you do it this way, the only microphone input you have is the one from your FLX floor right here. And it is a 1/4 inch. It is not as reliable as an XLR. You'll also notice on the FLX4 that there is really no mic control over here. There's one little area where you can hit the mic level, but that's it. It's only the volume. You can't mess with the highs, mediums, and lows, which for microphones is pretty important. Now, one thing I wanted to show you is how we'd go about this using a microphone, because if you're a DJ at a wedding, you're most likely going to be an MC, and MCs are the ones who are making announcements and moving things along. So this is where you would plug in your microphone, and you can even just use a wired mic. If you have an XLR cable and a wired microphone, you can just plug it in right here, and you can even just keep your microphone somewhere on the table. Every time you need to make an announcement, you can just turn this up, say, hey everybody, blah, 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 and then you'll probably want to turn it down after that. That way it doesn't pick up any sound and go play through the speakers. If you're going to be doing a wedding where you're doing a ceremony and have a lot of speeches, I'd probably go with a different mixer. I actually have a 10-channel mixer that's exactly the same as this Yamaha one. It's just got a couple more channels, and I use that for weddings now. But this one does have more than just these 2 channels. It's got some 1/4 inch channels here. So you would be able to go about that, but you would just need an adapter. And so I do have one of those adapters right here. You would plug it in right here, and then you could actually plug in your microphones pretty easily as well. That being said, if you were going without the mixer and you wanted to use microphones, you would also use this adapter. Plug it in right here, unless your microphone already is adapted to a 1/4 inch. But it's pretty handy to have one of these. They're pretty useful. I'll put the link in the comments as well. Well, there you have it. Super simple, super easy setup. And this setup is going to be one that you can adjust, change, and of course, upgrade eventually. If you have any questions, put them in the comments. I'd love to respond and I'd love to get in touch with you guys. Again, this is not the setup I use anymore. When you're a DJ, you get what you pay for. So now I have a completely different setup for the most part. My controller, however, and computer are still the same. I will make another video showing you guys my current setup so you guys can see how I've upgraded over this past year. Hope you enjoyed. This entire DJ setup is probably worth about $1,500. I would strongly recommend going about using the extra things like the mixer and the Facade. I didn't set up my Facade, but a Facade looks even better than that tablecloth. So keep that in mind when you guys are thinking of presentation. Make sure to like and subscribe. Put stuff in the comments if you got any questions. I'm going to be posting more DJ videos about my current setup, which is much nicer than this, so it can give you an idea of how to upgrade.